Good morning, everybody. Hi. So my name's Jeff Williams. I'm on the church's leadership team, the board. And you may remember a few weeks ago, we ran a church questionnaire. So this was something that came out of the work of a subgroup on the board, the Missional Discipleship Pastoral Care Team, which is led by Janice. And so we devised a questionnaire with 13 different questions, really around the theme of connecting. And we're really trying to build a picture of how well we're connecting as a body and just where any of the issues are. And it really gave us some amazing results. So one of the things I want to say to start with is we had 227 questionnaires returned, which, if you spoke to any researcher looking at a group like this, that is a phenomenal rate. That is an amazing rate of return, which just tells us already how engaged you are and willing to be involved. So we want to say a massive, massive thank you for that. So really what I'm here today to do is not to go through all of the questions, but just to give you a brief glimpse and perhaps show you something that maybe we were surprised by, you might not be, but also some of the painful stuff as well, and just a little bit of thought as to how mindful we could be around doing that. The first one was really out of question one, how would you describe yourself? We discovered that 83% of you regard yourselves as Christians, as followers of Jesus. And then the rest of the congregation, really, the percentage is a lot lower, split between seeker, explorers, attenders, those reconnecting, those who are curious, and those who are looking. One of the things that we were really interested to know was, because of really just the size of the church and the layout, the space that we've got outside, we were really wondering how many people that each of you would know by name. Now, I don't know about you, but when I come to church, very often I recognize faces. So if I bumped into you in the street, I would be able to think, oh, right, I recognize you, but I wouldn't know your name. And even though I pray on the prayer team, I meet people every week, I will ask you your name. The chances are that by the following week, I will have forgotten. So it may be that you feel a little bit like that. So one of the delights here was that 56% of the congregation know more than 26 people by name. Through the different groups of numbers, that's pretty much split evenly throughout, all the way down to zero, so somebody who doesn't know anybody at all. You might look at that at one point and say, goodness me, look how many in the church don't know that many people. But what I would say is, this is actually a sign of a growing church, because if this was just a church that was totally insular, that number would be up near 100%. So this shows us that we've got more people coming in. It shows us that there's more of us are trying or need to try and find out more about one another. One of the really important questions here was this one, number 3. Do you find it easy to get to know people at Trinity? And 66% said yes, it was easy, and 34%, so roughly a third, said it was not easy at all. Now, I'm going to take you to question 4 in just a minute, but what I want to say first of all is, and I'll explain this in a minute, what this tells us is that at church on a Sunday, 1/3 of the congregation are having a different experience than 2/3 of the congregation are. And it's really important for us to understand that that is all happening within the same room at the same time, going through the same worship and the same messages. So we're having a different experience. One of the most painful parts for us as a team was when we read through the answers to question 4, which was, why don't you know? Why do you not find it easy? And I'm not going to go into the details now, but we experienced a lot of answers that expressed feelings of rejection or hurt, people feeling excluded, or at the very least, they were not feeling included. There was people feeling isolated, even though they were trying to make an effort to get to know people. And then for a number of people, there were mental or emotional barriers, lacking confidence, struggling with anxiety, things like this. So with this question, few of the things we realized was that the church building characteristics have a part to play in this. So when you look at us here, we're a big sort of sized congregation. There's normally around about 300 here, less today because of school holidays, but we're quite spread out. And then when we go into the foyer, trying to get that many people in there, it's also very, very noisy. So trying to find people that you know amongst the crowd can be difficult. So there was time and space constraints. But there were also social dynamics. One of the things we did a thematic analysis of the answers. And one of the summary titles it came up with was, which I thought was fascinating, was territorial attendees. So apparently as a church, we suffer with territorial attendees. Now, what does that mean? What it means is that people were observing that there are groups that tend to sit in the same places every week. Okay? We know we're guilty of it. Okay? And we sit there and we tend to know the people that are around us. And some of the reasons we sit like that is because we want to be in a place where people know who we are and where we can chat and get an update on where we are. So it's not surprising. But people who felt on the outside would feel like those were cliques and that they were hard to try and break into and get to know people. So there was a lot of experiences of pain and loneliness that came out in that. For others, there were physical limitations, maybe around disabilities, being deaf, struggling with mobility, having to go early because of transport. And so there are people expressing, whether they sat in here or whether they sat outside in the coffee area, they're expressing feelings of loneliness and isolation. It's really clear, isn't it, that we can be very lonely in a crowd. So that tells us that we are having differing experiences of church on a Sunday. And the phrase I want to use here as a challenge is that we have a challenge of connecting through the crowd. Now, what that means is really, we all have to ask ourselves a question, which is, could I do better, not at reaching out to people outside the church to start with, but by reaching in to the people who are around me? What would it be like if I decided to sit in different places each week and try to get to know the people who I then bumped into in the areas around? What would it be like if I came to church every Sunday and decided I'm going to go up to somebody who I've never met before, say hello to them and try and learn a bit about them? Now, I know for some of us, we may feel really anxious about that and find that difficult. But let's really think about how we as a church can care for one another by breaking our habits, by reaching out, getting to know people, expressing an interest in others. Bearing in mind, sorry, my voice is going to go, bearing in mind that there are people who will find it very, very hard to do that. Okay? So if we make the first move and seek to get to know people, that would be great. Question 5 said, do you currently attend a life group at Trinity Church? Now, just to say, as a leadership team, in terms of values within the church, we probably put attending a life group as a very, very high priority because we see it as a major way of connecting, of caring, and of being discipled, growing in Jesus. So what the numbers here tell us is there's about 45% who are, which means there are 55% who aren't. Now, of course, what that means we want to do is encourage more and more people into life groups, which is massively important. There are reasons why some people aren't, and we've got lots of data about that. But 45%. What we found was that the most common barrier for people was a lack of time. You're leading very busy lives. There are family commitments that get in the way. There may be a lack of nearby groups, or feeling like you just don't know about the life groups in the church. Some people were very honest and just expressed disinterest. And for others, it was about a lack of confidence in social settings. And so bearing those things in mind, there are possible solutions that we can have a look at. In terms of encouragement, do you feel like you're growing as a Christian? 45% of you said you are definitely growing. 39% were growing a little bit, which is great. Then 12% struggling, or 7% not growing at all. And now again, we felt sad about that. We really expressed concern. But on the other level, it's important to say that if everybody was all growing, that would just mean that we're all on board, we're all thinking the same way. What this tells us again is that people are in different places. Maybe there are people who are quite new, people who've not been in church before, and they're trying to even figure out what growing really means and looks like. So that's a good representation of the diversity within the church. I'm not going to go into detail about this. Question 11 was ways you love to serve, helping others. And there was a really great spread of information. Lots of people, though, were very, very involved in practical help. Many are motivated by relational care. There's a big commitment to children and youth ministries. And then the formal teaching and financial giving were also part of the picture. Interestingly, because we were thinking about connecting, one of the questions we asked was this: do you feel connected by serving in a team at Trinity? Now, we hadn't thought about asking that question before. We were probably just going to ask, how many of you are serving in a team? But because the theme of our question was connection, well, we thought we might as well just ask that. Just throw it into the mix. I don't think we really understood how important this one was. So 60%, let me say that again, 60% of you said that you feel connected to others in the church by serving in a team. Now, let me go back a minute. As a leadership, probably our highest value is on life groups. What was the life group number? It was 45%, okay? That are attending life groups, which is what we see as a big main way of connecting. But actually, look at the difference. Now, that really surprised us, which means that instead of just pushing life groups, which we're going to carry on doing, we really, really want to encourage you to get involved in serving. Because do you know what? When you're doing a task and you're standing next to somebody, like serving tea or coffee or washing the dishes or doing the gardening work, you cannot help but get to know them and chat. The other really nice thing is, by the way, in those circumstances, most of the time, if you're struggling with anxiety, you're not stood face to face looking at somebody, okay? Which might be really great in my case. You might not want to be spending your time looking straight at me. You could look at something beautiful and wonderful instead. But what it means is, when you stood next to somebody doing a task, it's just a lot easier just to chat and get to know people. So that's one of the really big things that we think we can push to move forward. So really what I just want to finish with at the moment is this. There's loads of data. We are going to keep learning as a leadership team from the data we've got. We're going to be doing all sorts of things in the future. But this is the thing. Folks, let's make a commitment here this morning that we are going to start connecting through the crowd, okay? Talk to people we've not met, greet them, say hello. But if you want to get connecting, you can do it by serving together in ministry areas. You can do it by sharing together in life groups. But by making the effort to reach one another and really make others feel welcome, if we all chose to do that, that would be a sign that we are not just serving together or sharing together. That would be a real sign as a church that we are caring together. So that those people who are going through the pain of isolation, who don't feel a part of us, really start to feel brought in. So the final thing I just want to say is, if you're interested or want to know more about serving in the church, there's a QR code up here. It will open up for you areas around serving within the church. Consider going through that and thinking how you might be involved, thinking about areas where you've got maybe some strength, some gifts, some ability, or some time, and have a look at that.